Airlines based in North America, Europe and Asia are cancelling flights to China as authorities seek to contain the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus. This as the World Health Organization itself heads to China to decide on whether or not to declare the virus an international emergency. Let's cross live now to SABC News Correspondent Kate Fisher in Washington in the United States for the latest on this. Kate, a very good evening to you. So we've seen the US ban flights along with other countries to China. And just looking, I believe that there have been 5 people who've tested positive, US patients who've tested positive for the virus. 92 are still pending and 68 have tested negative.
Yeah, that's right. And the Centers for Disease Control here in the United States is doing all it can to try to keep those numbers low. You'll know that there has just landed a plane bringing US citizens from Wuhan in China back to the United States. They were screened twice before they left China to get on that aeroplane, screened throughout the flight, which landed initially in Anchorage in Alaska, where again they were screened twice by health professionals. We understand there were cheers as the plane landed on US soil and they were told welcome home back to the United States. The final destination for those passengers was a military base in California, where they arrived an hour or so ago. They were greeted by medical professionals all dressed in white protective gear, who again will screen them and take them to a quarantine area. These are all measures to try to ensure that this virus doesn't spread any further should any of these people be carrying it. And authorities also have extended the number of airports with screening facilities. In the US it was just 5 airports. It's now 20 airports which will have screening in place. Vice President Mike Pence saying that covers nearly 90% of flights from China. So the authorities here suggesting that things are in hand and that they are doing all they can to ensure that any risk is very minimal to the United States.
So let's talk about how many states are being on high alert. I understand just there's a list of people who may have been infected, who samples have been sent but have not been tested. Is it correct that 36 states, American states, are under scrutiny?
I'm afraid I don't have the exact numbers because it's such a fluid situation. Certainly, the most recent estimate from the CDC is that 36, but clearly they are making sure that there are facilities in place in every single state across the US. We're told that every state, all 50 plus Puerto Rico, have quarantine centres. So that is areas where people suspected of carrying this can be treated and kept while they are monitored by medical professionals. So it is certainly something that is if it hasn't encompassed the whole of the United States just yet, there are precautions in place, measures in place to deal with it should it spread to every single state and Puerto Rico.
Let's talk about, so we've managed to talk about those who are being quarantined, but what other preventative measures are being taken other than screening at ports of entry? Is there information on how to contract the disease and what to do if you see certain signs? Is there an emergency room, so to speak, in United States to deal with this?
Yeah, as I said, there are specialist quarantine centres in each of the 50 states and Puerto Rico that have been set up specifically for people who are concerned about whether they could be carrying this virus. And clearly, all now 20 airports across the US, which include all of those that deal with flights from the Chinese mainland, they have all got these screenings in progress. Of course, there is the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, ensuring that advice is given out at airports, but also on local media. So if there is anybody feeling that they may be unwell and have been in contact with or have travelled from China or being in contact with anyone that has, that they go to one of these quarantine areas and actually call up as well to try to minimise their risk for leaving, for spreading it any further. So although obviously people are worried, and I know that there was initially a plan for that plane that was coming from Wuhan that went first to Anchorage in Alaska and then to an air reserve base in California. Initially, that plane was due to land at a regular airport in California, Ontario Airport, but local people had concerns about that, and in the end it was switched. The State Department decided to switch it to this military base, I guess to try to prevent less members of the public from coming into contact with it and anyone on board. And the reason that it landed initially at that airport, Anchorage Airport in Alaska, is because that airport is closed during the winter to passenger flights, so there was nobody else there, and that is why that airport is often used in cases like this, because they know there is a minimal risk of many fewer people being in contact with any of the people on board.
All right, thank you very much for that update. SABC News Correspondent speaking to us from Washington, Kate Fisher.